Welcome to the wonderful world of puzzles. And of course, one of the most popular types of puzzles is a jigsaw puzzle. It tests you by requiring the solver to assemble these weird little shaped and interlocking mosaic pieces together in order to reveal a fully formed picture. Now, most attribute the invention of the jigsaw puzzle to British cartographer John Spilsbury, who in the mid-1700s took a wooden map of Europe and cut out the countries into little pieces in order to teach geography to children. He immediately saw the business opportunity and created versions for all of Europe, Asia, Africa, and even America. And 250 years later, the jigsaw puzzle is still wildly popular with both children and adults. In the next 5 years, the global market for jigsaw puzzles is expected to grow to $765 million. Almost $1 billion market for taking a picture, breaking it up, and then spending the time to put it all back together, logically, to reform that picture. Interestingly, there may be no better metaphor than jigsaw puzzles for what we think of as the strategy of marketing content. Content operations and content marketing strategy, three words that when you move the pieces around describe different pictures of what our business intends to do with content. But here's the fun part, the secret to all of it, the puzzle, is that it's not one puzzle, it's three. And the best way to solve them is to dump all three boxes of pieces onto the table and take all those disconnected pieces that don't seem to justify our efforts and put them all back together, piece by piece by piece. It's only then that we'll get to see the whole picture of content strategy. Welcome to episode 9 of Marketing Makers, the series for those that make marketing work. I'm Robert Rose, and your host, and whether you're an independent consultant, a director at a Fortune 100, a newly appointed CMO, well, we are all marketing makers. And this month, we're talking about content strategy. Let's solve the puzzle and look at the whole picture of marketing content, content marketing, and content strategy. What is content strategy? Welcome to Marketing Makers. Oh, hi, everybody. Hold on. We're a Marketing Makers lab, and I'm going to get this. I swear I'm going to get this. It's going to come out. I promise. I got it. I almost got it. Anyway, I got to put this down. Welcome to the Marketing Makers Lab, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. It's here that we explore the background, of course, of some of marketing's historical concepts and how they've evolved into some of today's most modern of marketing approaches. And I just got to stop that. I just have to stop that because I am never going to solve that thing. As you can see, what I've been trying to do here is solve this puzzle, this Rubik's Cube here. You know, I just watched Will Smith solve it in the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, and he made it look so easy, and it's not that easy. I just can't figure it out. It's a complicated 3D puzzle, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, which is more 2D, of course, and either one sort of reminds me of the challenge of content strategy. And that's something that I've got a little more experience in trying to solve. Probably can't solve it in the back of a cab like Will Smith does the Rubik's Cube, but we'll see how I do. So what is content strategy anyway? Well, it's a term that's really caused quite a bit of consternation in the world of business, and certainly for the last 20 years when we've moved into this digital business. So many people have defined it, misdefined it, conflated it with other activities to the point that there's one definition calling content strategy the act of creating business goals and then using content as a means of achieving those business goals. As Captain America might say,
He's out of line, but he's right. It's great.
Yeah, he's exactly right. It's a little like saying a workout strategy is the act of health goals and then using exercise as a means of meeting those health goals. It's not wrong, but it's really far from helpful. So, part of the challenge, of course, is the word content. It's a big word. I mean, it's not really a big word. It's, 7 letters, but the idea is very big. It describes so much. Even the dictionary definition of it is a bit inaccessible, bringing back that familiar unhelpful feeling of the definition we just heard before. Content in the dictionary is defined as something contained, usually in plural, like the jar's contents, or the topics of matter created in a work, like the table of contents, or the principal substance or information offered by a website, as in that site has free content. Or my favorite, a part of an element or complex of parts of elements. That's just not going to be terribly helpful in narrowing things down, is it? So no wonder it's a bit tricky. So here's a way that I've found to be helpful in trying to communicate what we mean by content within the context of a business's content strategy. Put very simply, content is communication. That's simple. Content is communication. Back in the early 1970s, business guru Peter Drucker, he defined a business as a social group that differs from other groups in only one way, which is businesses have customers. So, if we sort of back all that up and we say a business is a social group of people who work together to create customers, thus, as a collective, the business must communicate in a voice that is intelligent, emotional, occasionally persuasive, but most importantly, coordinated. Put simply, how do you make the many voices of the people in a business and transform it into the one voice of the business? That communication, all of it, and all of its varieties to the different audiences, that's what we mean by content. And the method by which we coordinate it into one voice, that's the strategy. Put simply, in my mind, enterprise content strategy is simply coordinated business communication. Now, here's the thing. As you might expect, what defines business communications also changes over time. So coordinated business communication was one thing in the 1960s, and yet another in the 1980s, and yet another in the early 2000s, and some completely different in 2021. So the other tricky thing about putting our arms around content strategy as a concept, that it's just not the structure, the scale, or the technological capabilities that evolve. The style, the substance, the way humans communicate, that also changes. In other words, the strategy changes, but so does the content. Imagine trying to communicate a marketing meme to the CEO in the 1960s. You'd walk into their office and you'd say, "We've got our latest business communication, and it agrees on the point being made, but it disagrees on how it was made. It's going to be contained in an animated image, but here's the thing, boss. This animated image will just be a reference to a scene in a popular movie. That will be the sum of our communications response. Here it is."
He's out of line, but he's right. It's great.
You see, we communicate in very, very different ways these days. Content strategy as a concept evolves. We can go back to 1965 and Hughes Aircraft. Yeah, that Howard Hughes, and a report called the Sequential Thematic Organization of Publications. Or, yeah, they went with that acronym, STOP. And if you're like me, you figure they called it STOP so that they could say stop content or stop something else. But anyway, the whole method and the report itself was designed to get their arms around a really particular business problem: how to organize and write a technical report which makes segments, or these bite-sized chunks of the report, available to other content vehicles. A structure, if you will, a structure or modularity of the content in a way that it could scale to other channels. Now, that idea would follow us forward. We can look to 1988 and Anne Rockley, she's been called the mother of content strategy in many circles, and her seminal work on evolving what was then called hypermedia. Yeah, remember, this was before the web, so it was called hypermedia, CD-ROMs, and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, when the web did become more prevalent and channels and formats and other communications changed again, well, so too did the idea of content strategy. There have been no shortage of content strategist leaders in our industry who have evolved it throughout time. Christina Halverson brought content strategy for the web to life by saying that content strategy was the creation, publication, and governance of usable content. Content strategist Scott Abel said once that content is your most valuable business asset. Content strategy demonstrates how to manage it efficiently and effectively. Aaron Kassane's book, The Elements of Content Strategy, goes into further detail and also quotes another content strategist, Rachel Levinger, who said, content strategy is to copywriting as information architecture is to design. Now, all of those are fantastic definitions and very accurate in my opinion, and it leads us to one of my favorite views of the content strategy by strategist Rahel Bailey, and her view that says, content strategy includes the planning aspects of managing content throughout its life cycle and includes aligning content to business goals, analysis, and modeling, and influences the development, production, presentation, evaluation, measurement, and sunsetting of content, including governance. Whew. That's a lot of words, but it's accurate. It's exactly what it means. It means how do we plan for coordinated business communications? So, we settled? Do we now know what content strategy is? Well, probably yes and no. I mean, you see, as I just mentioned previously, it's not just the strategy that's evolved, but the substance of the way that humans communicate. The content itself, the strategy is the planning and all of that stuff, but the content, it also changed. It's a key part of evolving our content strategy. So the strategy part, we've got down. Well, the leaders in the industry that I just quoted, they outlined it very well, great clarity, it's a well-defined approach to managing through a life cycle and blah, and goals and analysis and structure and measurement, got it. But, put simply, we've got the method by which we coordinate content, but now we have to talk about something important. What is the content that we want to have a strategy for? Looking to generate better results with content marketing? Find high-performing content ideas, optimize your copy, enhance analytics, and automate all time-consuming tasks with SEMrush's Content Marketing Platform. www.semrush.com/content-marketing. You can see the URL on the screen there, semrush.com/content-marketing. Hi, and welcome back. So yeah, it's more than one puzzle. Not just the strategy, it's the content. It's multiple puzzles that have to be broken into lots of small, disconnected pieces until they fit together to bring to life a beautiful picture. Now, we talked about the strategy component and how content strategy is about coordinating our communication, the planning, the management, the approach of the strategic asset of the business called content. We move it through analysis, modeling, development, production, presentation, evaluation, measurement, and even the archiving of these wonderful assets that we call content. But what else makes up our content strategy? Well, remember that useless definition that I gave at the beginning of the show where I said that somebody had defined content strategy as the act of creating business goals and then using content as a means of achieving those business goals? Well, the question is, what content? And what business goals? This is one of the reasons that content strategy descriptions can be so vague. We don't actually define the actual content we're talking about because it could, in theory, include everything that the business does. So let's look at this in an overly simplified but very common application of what an enterprise or a business content strategy looks like. Very many times when we talk about content strategy, we are talking about, first, marketing content. Now, there's no part of the business that communicates more and needs more coordination than marketing and sales. And you might even include PR and corporate communications, but maybe you don't. But broadly speaking, we can call this marketing content. It is communication that is designed to talk about the value of our brand, our products, our services, our business. It might be brand awareness, demand generation content, selling content, sales enablement content, paid media advertising. It is the content that extols the virtue of our offerings into the marketplace. Its goal is to reach that target audience, communicate the benefits and features of our brand, our target, or our service. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we'd have that which we call content marketing. Now, content marketing is, of course, a different approach. It's the content that we create to publish and promote that's valuable in and of itself. It's valuable to our audiences almost despite our relationship with the brand, the products and services. It creates value, educates, inspires, entertains in order that the audience grows greater affinity with that which brought them there, which of course is our brand. Now here it might be storytelling, journalism, thought leadership. The goal is to engage, build, and monetize an audience by demonstrating our brand's differentiated value through the expression of content. Then, and this is the link that brings that cohesive strategy together, that brings these two disparate types of content together, in the middle, we have the strategic operation of content. Here is where that planning, activity, managing content through its life cycle, directing, balancing, aligning business goals, modeling, developing structures, measurement, governance, all of those activities sit together. These are the three components that would make up a content strategy: the governance, management of the strategy, and the different definitions of content, clarity around that we are managing. That's what makes up the totality of an enterprise content strategy. Now, if I were really drawing this out, I might add other elements of content in here and how that would be treated. Like I might have product content, HR content, internal comms, PR, corporate communications, legal, compliance, billing, contracts, e-commerce, everything that a business might produce that a customer is going to see as communication from our business. You see how this works. An enterprise content strategy is what? Coordinated business communication. The key is that we define what content will be communicated. And our content strategy is then the connection that makes these things work in a coordinated fashion for the business. So, remember, our business is a social construct. It's made up of people who make up puzzles of marketing content and content marketing and sales content and all kinds of different content. And our job, if we're going to take on the role of content strategist, is to put all those puzzle pieces together. To use another extremely simplified and maybe surface level explanation, the marketing content or content marketing practitioner helps to address the whys of our communication. The content strategist addresses the hows of how it will be used and treated strategically. And together as a team, they work out the optimal whats and wheres of where that content will live itself. The content marketer draws the story and plans the channels that will be used to develop the customer relationship with the brand. The content strategist ensures that story, language, and the management processes work consistently, are optimized efficiently, work across multiple teams and languages, the brand leverages, and yes, the different approaches, they are different, but they are three, or more importantly, three pieces to a puzzle. And whether or not they can be implemented and solved by the same person or team of people in your organization, that's another matter. They are three and very distinct roles and strategies that we have to put together into a complete picture. Now, that's the key. It's the heart of a great puzzle, our enterprise content strategy. Difficult enough that we solve it. It's differentiating when it is solved, but not so hard. Well, it's not debilitating. It's just a puzzle. Your key is finding the right people who can solve it. And well, that's what we're after, isn't it? Be so good at content that it engages our customer and it looks like it's effortless. There's a wonderful quote attributed to Mark Kane that says, "Meticulous planning will enable everything we do to appear spontaneous." The best business communication is when we can humanize our company and deliver spontaneous, meaningful, and contextual content. A great content strategy that meticulously plans for not only knows what to say, but how when, where, and how often to say it, that's the key to making it feel human. And that's the greatest puzzle of all. Until I see you next month, it's your story to tell. Tell it well.